aurantiaca. I told you I'm gonna talk a little bit more detailed about the 4 species. We start with the Mantella aurantiaca. I think it's the most popular and most common Mantella we get. This is a picture of the natural habitat. Yeah? I told you about the pandanus trees, So these really have these roots which show that during the rain season the water level will raise a lot. Yeah? The Mantella aurantiaca is typically putting the clutches on land. So they are hiding it in the leaf litter, they are just hiding it somewhere in spaces between the roots. Yeah? And they need to be dry for the first days, otherwise when the clutches is laying into the water, it will die. Yeah? If you don't have the flooding of the clutches anymore because the water level is not raising high enough because there are some farmers building their rice fields in the swamp, or the climate changes and it's very dry, you won't have a lot of tadpoles and a lot of froglets in that forest. These forests are very small, so we are really talking about forests which having a size about 20 to 20 meter. 20 meter
okay.
to 20 meter. Yeah, so it's not a lot. And if you can imagine, you can't go and you have a lot of nice lakes here in Sweden. You have a common European frog and you say one lake is dry, so who cares, we put it into the next lake, no problem. These animals really need these special habitats, and if the habitat is gone, the frog is gone too. Rainer, the friend of mine, really tried to make a good job. I think he did a good job. We worked a lot together. He asked me how to make the settings for the breeding station and whatever. And for me it's kind of disappointing to see that you have really a successful project and the project is not successful because you can't do anything with the frogs you raise, except killing them. So, back to the Mantella aurantiaca.
So what you say is there is no demand on Mantellas?
No, you cannot export them.
You can't export them.
You can't export them.
Okay, from
because
Madagascar.
The government of Madagascar says we don't want them to be exported.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see the numbers of the individuals being exported during the last 20 years, and all the animals are gone in the terroristic, or almost all animals are gone in the terroristic, it's a question if it makes any sense.
The reason I asked was because when you talked about the viridis, you told me you tell us you have to stop because no one is buying them.
Yeah, nobody wants them.
Okay.
I have a terrarium full of Mantella viridis, which are now 2 years old. They are already calling. We have a breeding project in Germany and the German-speaking countries for Mantella viridis, where we breed Mantella viridis to protect them from extinction, but we breed them on the paper. So if I tell the zoos which are involved, here I have 200 Mantella viridis, everything is fine. can read it somewhere in the newspaper a little bit later, yeah? But that's it, yeah? And nobody cares what's happening with the animals. Yeah? So this is sometimes a little bit strange for me how we try to protect animals. Yeah? Because if we are not able to protect the habitats, which is for me the most important thing, the zoos are happier to be successful in breeding programs, but the breeding programs just exist on the paper, and are, I think, not really working. Yeah.
These small forests that you describe here, 20 by 20 meters,
yeah.
Is that isolated by farmland around, or is it a natural division in the environment?
It's a natural division. So
humans haven't destroyed this?
No,
this
no.
Area?
You really have to see the leaf litter on the ground. Yeah. If you I have to see. No, there are no pictures there. Yeah. So if you see the area around, this is about 50 meters from the spot where I took the other pictures. Yeah, you have a total different environment. Yeah, where the Mantella seems not to be able to exist. Yeah. Somehow they must have been spread somewhere in the different forests. Yeah. I don't know if they were washed out by floodings. I don't know how many, 20 years ago. Yeah. But Miguel Vences and Frank Laaf, they made a lot of research with Rainer. And for example, they tried to figure out if the coloration of the Mantella aurantiaca is like warning enemies that they shouldn't be eaten. Yeah? So they took like orange plastic frogs they built, and brown and green and different coloration, and looked how many enemies tried to eat these plastic frogs, and they found out that the orange ones were tried to be eaten the most often when they were like somewhere in green grass or whatever. Yeah? So it's really like camouflage for the frogs, and you don't find them outside of the forest. They seem not to be able to exist there. Yeah. So, this is not a couple. These are two males fighting. The males seem to have like small territorials in the terrarium. And I told you that I lost sometimes frogs being drowned in the water. Sometimes they seem to fight in the water and drown themselves, being pushed under the water. So, yeah, it's always angry or disappointing when you have a healthy, good frog being drowned because the water level was too high. This is one of the hiding spaces or used to be one of the favorite hiding spaces of the my first Mantellas. If you remember the book, the clutch or the couple that disappeared on the moss was in that hiding place. It was a mangrove or piece of mangrove wood, which was in that height above the water. And they hit the clutch directly under the moss. The male was calling from that place, and I had the impression that the females are really being attracted by the calls and just looking in the hiding places if they are good for depositing the clutches, or if the female thinks, no, it's not my thing, it goes away, yeah, and the male is just jumping around it. Yeah. This is one of the frogs I used to buy 1992, 1994, and I made this picture in the year 2006.
Wow.
So they can live up to 20 years. And I got it as a wild-caught animal in 1992. Yeah. It died on the 5th of August in 2007.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Mm. Is that the larger toe pads is on the toes?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Is that for males?
No. You have them at males and females.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is something very often it's thought that the Mantella aurantiaca is living just on the ground. And you find them up in the higher areas of the terrarium too. And that's what I always think is why having just terrariums with that high, being wide but just that high. So I try to make my terrariums minimum 60 centimeters in height, so they have space to climb a little bit. And very often you find the clutches in, not even just on the ground, but in the middle areas of the terrarium too. Like I told you, this hiding space is in a height of that above the water level. This is a female. I don't know if it comes out with the picture, but here you see the eggs. It looks like a, how do you say, not a strawberry, but the other red things.
Yeah. Hallon.
Raspberry.
Raspberry, yeah. So if the female really is being full of eggs, it's like an orange raspberry. That's why I told you that I try to sprinkle my terrariums by hand or by myself, because then you can control the animals. Then you see, oh, there's a female being full of eggs. Now you have to stimulate the males that they be ready to fertilize the clutches. Yeah? So if there's no animal calling, no male calling, the females lose their eggs, and you find single eggs all over the terrarium. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then you know you won't have a clutch. Yeah. There's the picture. Yeah. So you see, here's the male going into the hiding space. There is already a clutch, and another female was attracted, and she's really, here you see a little bit the egg. Yeah? They really check the hiding place, if it's good or not. And if the female decides it's not good, she goes away. It's like with our women. If they don't like the decoration from IKEA, we have to go and find something else. So the development of the egg, that is what I showed you in the children's book already. First you really have a round egg with a round, small thing, and then you'll see after about 1 or 2 days that it gets a little bump, and then you really can see that the egg is developed. That's the stadium when I take the eggs, or try to take the eggs out of the terrarium. Yeah. And again, it's very small, very often well hidden. So a lot of Mantella keepers, I think, have a lot of clutches, but don't find them. And most of the clutches I had, I found because I saw that there was a big fat female, which suddenly wasn't big fat anymore. And then you start to search in the terrarium for the clutches, and then you find them.
Is there any strategies for when you set up a terraria, so that you create places where they can create their hiding spaces, so to speak? So you don't have them on the back or way out from you.
I really try to buy mangrove woods with small holes, but the holes must be like that I can look into them, or that I can get the clutches out easily. And if it's just that I take the whole piece of wood out, put it in a bucket, and
fork them out.
Not fork, but take my pump with I sprinkle the terrarium, and then I try to wash out the tadpole or the clutch out of the wood. So I really try to create spaces where I think they might lay the clutches, so I don't have to search. It's easy with Mantella aurantiaca. That's why I'm gonna talk about the other species too, because they do it different, and then you probably have other problems, or it's easier too. Yeah. You see still the mass around. We in Germany we call it Dotter. Which is the same word like you have a chicken egg, the yellow. So they still live from this reserve they have, and you see they are pretty light on the back. So it's for me still a sign that they don't have to feed them. And when they're a little bit bigger, they become brown. And then I feed them with spirulina tubs. I had a nice experience yesterday when I went to a small supermarket near the place my sister is living. I love going through supermarkets in other countries I visit. So I went to the very little ICA supermarket, and I found a glass of spirulina. I took it with me, because in Germany I buy for a lot of money spirulina tubs, which are mixed with other fish products. So I try to see if I can raise my tadpoles in future with the Swedish spirulina, which is supposed to, I don't know, put it in the salad or whatever. So I have the possibility to make new experiences.
So your sister will be your spirulina dealer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. One day the frog doesn't want to stay in the water anymore, and comes out, and you can imagine. So this is my fingertip. It's very, very small. You really need to have a lot of springtails to get these frogs big. I already told you that my old friend Helmut, that they really just took a small amount of animals to put them in different terrariums to get them big, and they said it was almost not possible, because when they didn't get enough food, they died.
Mm.
And here again, 1 cent coin. I know you have the Swedish crown, but I think the cent is very small. So these small frogs are really hard to be raised. In the beginning, they really sit in hiding spaces and wait for food passing around. Yeah? And the bigger they get, the more they move around in the terrarium, and you really can see that when they are old or adult, that sometimes they're really like climbing through the terrarium looking for food. And like I already told you, throw a small spider into it, and then the action begins. So that was the Mantella aurantiaca.